Look around your kitchen, your desk, your garage, or even the pocket you keep your keys in. There is a good chance you will find something made in China within seconds. Maybe a phone cable. Maybe a kettle. Maybe a screwdriver, a lamp, a toy, a coffee mug, or part of the laptop you are using right now. That happened because China did not just build factories. It built an entire manufacturing machine. By 2024, China's manufacturing value added was about $4.66 trillion out of a world total of about $16.82 trillion, which works out to roughly 28% of global manufacturing value added. And in 2024, manufactured goods made up about 91% of China's merchandise exports. So this is not really a story about one country making a lot of stuff. It is a story about how everyday products move through a giant system. A system with factories, parts suppliers, industrial districts, trucks, warehouses, ports, container ships, and retail networks. That is why the better question is not just, why is this made in China? The better question is, why is China so good at turning thousands of ordinary products into repeatable, affordable, shippable goods for the whole world? The short answer is that China became the world's manufacturing powerhouse by combining scale, infrastructure, industrial clustering, export integration, and logistics. A lot of people reduce the whole story to cheap labor, but that only explains part of it, and it explains less than it used to. What made China so powerful was the ecosystem effect. Once enough factories, suppliers, machine makers, packagers, ports, and shipping links were built close together, making products there became faster, easier, and often cheaper than making them in more scattered systems. Research on China's manufacturing clusters describes this concentration effect as a source of lower transport and production costs, stronger cooperation and competition, and higher efficiency through shared resources and innovation. Before the global factory came together, China's manufacturing rise did not begin overnight. The groundwork was laid through earlier reforms in the 1980s and 1990s, before China formally joined the World Trade Organization. China's WTO accession took effect in December 2001, but World Bank research notes that earlier reforms created the conditions for what came later, and that export processing was already important before accession. WTO entry then helped lock China more deeply into global trade rules and expanded the country's integration with world markets. In simple terms, China had already started building the machine, and WTO membership helped that machine connect more smoothly to the rest of the world. How factory clusters changed everything. One of the biggest reasons China became so strong in manufacturing is that production did not spread out evenly in random places. It concentrated into major industrial regions and clusters. The Pearl River Delta became a major manufacturing center, especially for export-oriented production, and research describes it as one of China's leading manufacturing regions shaped by strong cluster effects. The Yangtze River Delta also became one of the country's most integrated and economically active regions, with manufacturing and logistics deeply tied together. When industries cluster like this, suppliers are nearby, tools are nearby, technicians are nearby, ports are reachable, and switching from design to production to shipping becomes much easier. Think about something simple like a desk lamp. In a scattered system, one supplier makes the plastic shell far away, another makes screws somewhere else, another makes wiring somewhere else, and final assembly has to wait for everything to arrive. In a dense manufacturing cluster, those pieces can be sourced much faster because the supporting businesses are already built into the same region. That reduces delay, lowers coordination costs, and makes it easier to change designs, fix defects, or ramp production up quickly. This is one reason China became associated not just with cheap goods, but with fast production cycles across huge numbers of ordinary products. Why supplier networks matter more than people realize. This supplier network effect is one of the most important parts of the story, and it is often invisible to normal shoppers. A customer in another country sees only the final product on a shelf. But the real power is in the chain behind it. Factories need motors, molds, wires, chips, labels, cartons, plastic pellets, metal parts, testing services, packaging machines, warehouse space, trucking, customs handling, and shipping schedules. When these are close together and already used to working at high volume, the whole system becomes hard to beat. That is also why China's dominance spread across so many categories at once. It was not just one industry. It was toys, household goods, electronics, tools, lighting, furniture parts, small appliances, packaging, and thousands of low-profile components most consumers never think about. Once the ecosystem got deep enough, the advantage became cumulative. The more firms entered the system, the stronger the system became for the next firm. That is how a manufacturing base turns into a manufacturing powerhouse. Scale changed the economics of everyday goods. Scale matters in manufacturing because repeating the same process millions of times changes the math. Machines are used more efficiently. Workers and managers get faster through repetition. Suppliers can justify bigger investments. Shipping contracts become easier to negotiate. Packaging becomes standardized. Quality control improves because problems are seen again and again and solved again and again. A country making 1 million kettles and one making 100 million kettles are not really playing the same game. This is part of why China affects daily life so directly. Manufacturing concentration influences price, variety, and availability. If a production network can turn out huge volumes of basic goods at predictable speed, stores can stock more versions of those goods at more price points. That is why a shopper can find cheap versions, mid-range versions, branded versions, and near-identical versions of many everyday products. The manufacturing system is not just producing objects. It is producing options. Then came the logistics machine. Making a product is only half the story. Moving it is the other half. UNCTAD notes that around 80% of the volume of international trade in goods is carried by sea. That matters because container shipping is what turns factory output into global retail supply. China did not just build factories inland and hope for the best. It built huge export pathways to the coast and then into some of the busiest ports in the world. China is also the best connected economy in the global liner shipping network according to UNCTAD's liner shipping connectivity data. That means Chinese ports and shipping routes are deeply integrated into the regular global movement of containerized goods. This is where the story becomes very physical. A product leaves a factory, gets packed into cartons, stacked on pallets, loaded into a truck, moved to a warehouse or directly to a port, transferred into a container, cleared through export systems, and loaded onto a vessel that might carry thousands of containers at once. That system only works smoothly when roads, ports, shipping schedules, container handling, and trade processing are all strong enough to keep goods flowing without constant bottlenecks. That is one of the reasons logistics became part of China's manufacturing advantage, not just something added afterward. The ports that made the system global. The port numbers help show the scale of that machine. Shanghai became the first port in the world to exceed 50 million TEUs of annual container throughput in 2024. Ningbo Zhoushan handled 39.3 million TEUs in 2024 and connects to more than 600 ports in over 200 countries and regions. Shenzhen ended 2024 with a record 33.38 million TEUs, remaining one of the world's busiest container ports. When multiple ports inside one country are operating at that level, it becomes much easier for manufacturers to plug into global trade routes. Ports stop being distant gateways and become part of the factory system itself. And that matters for everyday goods because most of the things people buy are not urgent one-off shipments. They are repeat shipments. Container after container of cables, shoes, bins, lamps, fans, toys, chargers, kitchen tools, packaging materials, and components. Manufacturing power becomes much stronger when it is matched by container power. A country that can make quickly and ship reliably has an enormous advantage in supplying everyday retail markets around the world. Why this changed what people buy at home for ordinary consumers, the result was not just more imports. It was a different shopping experience. Retailers could source large volumes. Brands could launch more product variations. Seasonal goods could be produced at scale. Replacement parts could be made cheaply. Big box stores, discount chains, online marketplaces, and global wholesalers all benefited from a manufacturing base that could handle both huge quantities and wide product variety. China's role became especially visible in the categories people buy constantly but think about only briefly: extension cords, phone accessories, plastic storage, holiday lights, kitchen tools, fasteners, home decor, office supplies, and small appliances. This helps explain why the phrase, "made in China," became so familiar. It was not because one factory made everything. It was because an entire national and regional ecosystem became extremely good at coordinating ordinary production. Once that happened, product buyers around the world had a strong reason to keep returning: price, speed, choice, and reliability at scale. Was it only about low wages? Not really. Lower labor costs mattered, especially earlier on, but that explanation is too small for the system China built. If low wages alone created manufacturing dominance, production would have shifted away much more completely as wages rose. Instead, China kept major advantages because supplier density, factory experience, infrastructure, shipping connectivity, and production speed created value that went far beyond hourly pay. The better explanation is that China built a complete manufacturing environment. And complete systems are harder to replace than single factories. This is one reason why even when companies diversify some production, China often remains central in sourcing, components, assembly, or export processing. That is an inference from the strength of the clustered industrial base, the export mix, and the logistics network, not just from wage comparisons alone. Why it still matters now: this story still matters because the product system is the point. When one country becomes this important to everyday manufacturing, it affects inflation, retail pricing, shipping demand, product variety, delivery times, and supply chain resilience. If a major port slows, retailers feel it. If a cluster faces disruption, parts can become scarce. If shipping costs rise, ordinary shelf prices can rise too. That is why China's manufacturing role is not just an economic headline. It is part of how modern daily life is supplied. So how did China become the world's factory for everyday goods? It built more than factories. It built clusters of manufacturers, dense supplier networks, giant port systems, strong shipping connectivity, and production scale that made ordinary products fast to make and easy to move. That is why so many common goods around the world have passed through China at some point in their journey. The real story is not just about where products are made. It is about how a full industrial system can shape what ends up in homes everywhere. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe. Then tap the bell icon to turn on all notifications so you never miss any of our future videos.